Well, good morning, everybody. In case you haven't met me, I'm Pat Borowski, your district governor this year, and it is a pleasure. Thank you for coming. I just really want to comment, as you know, on the Ukraine effort, and some of you have heard me at your club meetings on this. Your generosity never surprised me. It just humbles me. And that is the kind of, because you understand what our obligation is in terms of those foundation numbers, in terms of being Rotarians. And I want you to take that joy, and I want you to give that gift to a whole lot more people. And we're going to talk a little bit about the prelude to our membership seminar. Today, we're kind of first going to tell you about the state of the district. And I am here to tell you financially, with Jake in the house and Glenn in the house, we are doing great. We have balanced budgets, and additionally, this year, for both the July billings and the January billings, we have had the fastest rate of return of dues being paid in full by all our clubs that the district has ever experienced. So bravo to you for getting that back on track, okay? Because the reality is a well-functioning club, competent and confident leaders in clubs are able to address all the issues that arise in clubs. So if we get back on that track, that's terrific. What we're going to talk about today is a little bit about where we are thus far on responses to our survey. Now you can see we've only have 257. So I'm not going to talk to you about validly statistical, data, but 257 is a good indication of where the trend in the district or items that we need to address in the district are, especially when you see consistency through that 257 responses. If the 270 were all over the map, we wouldn't even be able to have an indication for you. So, okay, how many years in Rotary? And I really want you to pay attention to that green slug. That's 28% of the respondents are under five or under years in Rotary. That's a pretty good sampling. The other thing I want you to notice about that is the next, under 40. Do you see how small that green thing is? Let's go back. That and this. So what does that mean? There are all age ranges in that green slug. Remember, all age ranges. And I'm here to tell you that green group filled out their questionnaires almost 100% identical. So, less than 40, just a tiny bit. So remember that. Irrespective of age, that group is giving us highly identical answers. All right. So, hey, look, everybody's very satisfied. And then over here, somewhat sad. That's terrific. Because the important thing is what's underneath it. Not much. So, yay for us. Why did you join Rotary? Use my skills, etc. Yeah. Networking. Keep your eye on networking. Why do you stay? Do you see how enlarged those three top bars are now? Even more so than you saw before? The interesting thing to me, this means because you're seeing almost equity in all three areas, is that it may be that they join for certain reasons, but it takes a 360-degree club experience for people to stay with Rotary. So they may join for one reason, but they stay because their global experience is positive. The networking didn't even change one vote. So still, you've got 28% that are looking for business connections. And while that is not the primary purpose of Rotary, please remember that Paul Harris started Rotary because he needed to find other business people with whom he could conduct his business, both domestically and internationally, who were trustworthy. Because in the turn of the 20th century, Chicago was a wide open town. Some would say significantly lawless. So therefore, this idea of understanding business, and the other transfer I would also, and you've heard me say this, some of you, you know, we're all successful business people. And I swear too many of us walk through the door of that club meeting and all that business acumen falls right out of your head onto the floor, never to be thought of a second time when you're talking about organizing, running your club, planning things, etc. We got to be able to bring that back. The types of meetings, in-person and hybrid. Not so keen on virtual, except if you're referring to education and information programs from the district level in particular. But the fact of the matter is, in-person and hybrid, and guess who's voting in that hybrid area? Remember that green block of under 5 years? Right there, hybrid. And remember, irrespective of age. Irrespective of age. So that's not just young people speaking, it's across the board. And given that we are a significantly age-weight heavy district, having successful hybrid meetings means that members who may be going to assisted living, may have to move out of your community, may be homebound for quite some time, you are giving them the gift of being able to continue to be a participating member in the Rotary Club that they have loved and supported all those years. Okay, now there's a lot of data here, but first thing is, I felt welcome when I joined. Our Rotary members care about each other. That's terrific. So please explain to me why only 43% of you, well, now 43% of you think, this is being honest, that my Rotary Club reflects my community. And we all know that, and I know clubs are striving to be better about that. Because if we don't reflect the composite of our community, it becomes more challenging for you as a club to believe that you're going to understand what the needs are and how to address those needs by always being, if you will, outsiders and potentially being viewed as outsiders. The other thing that is important is, remember I've told you, please look at the 2020 census. For our district, the 2020 census continues to project growth. That's from the top of our district to the bottom of our district. Growth. And that growth is going to be more diverse, more multicultural. Now, you're very happy with how they treat you, but only 58% of you actively engage others to come to your club meetings? I'm sorry, wasn't it 85% they felt welcome? And 75% 4% said, oh, my members care, yet only 58% of you are bringing other people. I mean, that's got to be at least 70%. If you're satisfied, if you think your club is valuable, if you think the time you're spending in your club is valuable, shouldn't that be equal? And that begins to explain what? The membership loss in our district. Because you're not sharing that gift. And that again shows here. I invite my friends, 45%. I invite qualified prospects, 48%. I frequently participate in service projects, 72%, and I am proud to be a Rotarian, clearly not as proud as we need to be. Right? So, now that we've looked at that, let's look at some other research that is really applicable to what we're talking about. And this is real research, like from the Pew Research Institute. How many people know that? Okay. Pew has the largest body of data of generational surveying in the world. They go back to the silent generation. And CDW and a few others. All right. This slide, somebody said to me, why are you showing them this slide? Well, one thing is, see baby boomers, 71.6 million. The generation behind us, what's that number? 65.2. Is 65.2 smaller than 71.6? Yes, it is. So looking at only Generation X as your replacement, we don't have enough people in that slot. This makes the Gen Y millennials super important to us. And to Generation X, even more important to you. Because they're bigger than you guys, and we're going to have to listen to their ideas. One of the statistics, and people in this room have probably heard me, is that over 5 years, when we recruit members under the age of 40, their retention with us is 24 to 36 months. Now, young people will suggest to you how you might improve. Young people will be enthusiastic and wanting to work with you on how we improve. And they will give us 24 to 36 months to make that turn. But if you don't respond to them, they're gone. When we recruit people 40 through their 60s, guess what the retention rate is? Oh, come on. It's what? No, but you're afraid of me? Please. The retention rate is 12 to 18 months. 12 to 18 months over 40 through the 60s. Now, why do you think that happens? The answer is they have no interest in changing your club. They joined you to change their communities, not to change you. And if they're going to have to spin their wheels to change you in order for them to change the community, they're like, I'm out of here, man. There's another group that's already ahead of you. And the reasons they give are all the same reasons that young people will tell you how and why you should change. Young people are honest. And when you're 40 through your 60s, it's not that you're being dishonest. You just don't have any time for it. So if you don't already have your act together, they're not making the investment.
Can you clarify that, because I don't quite understand. What does it mean when you say they want to change the community, not the club? What is it that refers to that the club is not doing? Because all of us join Rotary in order to have an impact on our community, provide service. So where
Out-of-date websites, no social media accounts, out-of-date social media accounts, being very rigid in your programming. The idea if you do not come weekly to a face-to-face meeting, there's sort of an outcast. Having people sit at tables that never say hello to you. Not having hybrid meetings, go back to that green slug. Understand that we have before COVID and after COVID members. After COVID members joined us through Zoom. And silly them, they actually thought that's going to be a continuing option. And they are not enamored necessarily with the weekly meeting. And again, that's irrespective of age. And you all know, if you're being honest, there was a certain percentage of your then current members that you picked up on Zoom as well, who were not necessarily coming to the weekly meeting. But you saw them on Zoom. That's a message. They will come to the service projects. They will come to your fellowship thing. They will come, maybe periodically they'll come and pop in. They'll be on the Zoom meetings. But if you're going to tell them, well, you know, if you don't come to the weekly meeting, you're not really a Rotarian in this club. The other issue is not as advertised. That is, I'm the one recruiting Cindy, and I'm telling Cindy, here's what our club does, and blah, blah, blah. And what's the first thing you do? You invite them to a meeting. Is that who we really are? Your meeting? No, we're projects. And so you come to the meeting, you sit down, and there's a group of 3 Rotarians, and you say, oh, well, you know, it's really nice to be here. Can you tell me something? And they tell 3 different stories about what your club is, none of which Pat told you. And now they're confused. And then suddenly, you're asking them to do all these things and saying, oh, this is expected of members, and you didn't tell them any of this before they joined. So they are out. The last thing I want you to look at this is current research now says that the baby boomer classification was too broad. And so researchers are now dividing the baby boomer generation between those born prior to 1957 and those born after 1957. Because there are clear differences. And with that kind of division, they're also saying when you take that and you look at it, the distinct differences that used to occur between and among generations is now blurring. Why do you think that's the case? Technology, but what specifically? TV. Everybody born from 1957 onward has had television their entire life. That then causes there to be a unity, a higher unity in experience situations where before those shared experiences had to be in person. So, and what else is important about that? into Jonathan's technology, because people born around 1957, although I would say through the early 1950 forward, were all the technologists. They gave us the technology that is today. So, here's a little thing. This is like a hipster's, you know. But the reason I'm taking this is, look at how they define boomers. 1957, though, through 63. All white men, yes. But now what's the difference here? The difference here is, in testing this, there has been a 65% increase in baby boomers from 57 onward for TikTok, Messenger, Instagram. If you take the other half of the baby boomer generation, that would come down significantly. So, you see those percentages. What does that tell you? The blurring of generational lines. So, let's look at some things. The biggest thing is, please do not confuse member satisfaction with loyalty. What is the difference? Satisfaction is generally focused on a single experience. Loyalty is assessed on an environment. Remember that slide, why did you join versus why you stay? So don't ever get those two confused. Also, satisfaction surveys versus surveys on loyalty are highly susceptible to what mood you're in when you get out of bed. But loyalty surveys, which can also be tracked with patterns of behavior, are a great deal more reliable. And what it tells us is they want the 360-degree experience. For instance, another one is when you join a club, they say, oh, we have this service project coming up. And oh, that's great, and then you do the service project and you go, what's next? And the club goes, oh, well, we're not really sure. We're going to be planning something maybe. You got to have a year-round program. This is very important. The less people volunteer before retirement, the higher likelihood they will never volunteer after retirement. And that tracks all the way back to the people in their 20s. So look for people who are already involved. Ask them, well, what kind of things have you been involved in? If anybody was at the Peace Conference, listening to the backgrounds of those peace scholars, they were involved in this kind of area and work and volunteering back in high school. That doesn't change. So, just because somebody didn't do it and they're moving to the neighborhood because they retired does not mean that they will do that. And the other issue, of course, as I said, please don't let the first experience you expose them to be your meeting. Invite them to your service project. Let them see what they're signing up for, really. Let them see you in action and working as community improvers. Service projects not flexible enough. A lot of clubs go, okay, we're having this service project. Now everybody's got to be there at 9 o'clock, and we're all going to do this and this, and we'll be done by 3 or 4 or whatever. Make it so you've got some people on a planning committee, some people on a setup committee. Give them 2 hours on a project and rotate those volunteers. Somebody on the breakdown committee. And please have a fellowship event after a big service project. It's wonderful. And invite your volunteers who aren't yet members. It's a great way to do that. And of course, yeah, yes, you can either have it at the site or you can have it, everybody, we're going to meet down at Fred's at 5 o'clock, please join us. Or a week later as a wrap-up, depending. It's nicer if, I will tell you, you will have more success if it directly follows the service project. In my club, now we have the luxury of also having a good relationship with the Moose Lodge. And so if we're doing big packing events or something like that, we go ahead and we have a list of, I think it's like 500 volunteers. Curtis, isn't that true? Yeah, right. So we know all of those people are not going to join our club, but we do know all those people are interested in coming out and doing a service project. And we get their kids, their hours for community service. We ask them to put down their school, and we report all that back to all those different schools with their hours, with a copy to the parents and the kids so that they know that. And then we have a big, an early supper event where it's $10 a person, and for any of the volunteers that decide to stay over, we foot the $10 for them. And it's a way of saying thank you. Yes, Linda. There you are. And nothing, Chick-fil-A will do a lot for you, by the way, in your community. So now we have the exhaustion factor. To get a charter from Rotary, you have to have 20 people. That's not a number they just pulled out of the air. That is a calibrated number, the minimum you need to organize, to move a club forward and get it growing. And if that's what you do, you will not exhaust that original 20. You don't go beyond 20 or you backstep. You are guaranteed to burn your leaders out. And additionally, you become too small for your community to even know you're doing anything or that you exist. Is that fulfilling your obligations that you took on to Rotary when you accepted that charter? No. No, it is not. And every single Rotarian is too important to us and to this district and to Rotary to lose them because they're burned out. So we have to open our minds and figure out, what do we do? The last thing, this is using fixed mindset versus growth mindset. I would tell you it is the difference between, there's like 9 different adult learning methods, but all you have to do is break it down into think and do's and see and do's. One is not smarter than the other. It's just the way your brain is wired. Think and do's are what they're referring, or I should say see and do's are what they're referring to a fixed mindset. See and do's are people that know exactly what they do, exactly why they do it, exactly how they do it, and it sits right up here in the front of their brain, which is, by the way, the place where information first comes through. And so when you start talking about change, they're going, I don't understand, you're not clear, you're confusing me. I don't think you've thought this through, because they are trying to take what you are telling them and put it in that cube. And of course, it's not fitting in that cube, is it? Because it's called change. And so they're like, no, I don't know. Growth mindsets, or as I like to call it, think and do people, they are conceptualizers. So as you're speaking to them, they begin to conceptualize, what are you talking about? Oh, okay, yeah, I get that. Oh, maybe I'll try this change or that change, right? Because they're not afraid to move forward. They don't hesitate in that. And so for those people, those are the people that you should be speaking to and putting on your committees to begin change. Now, that does not leave out the see and do's, because once you have your think and do's move forward, and in a corporate setting, this is how you should always do it. You have weekly or bi-weekly meetings, and you talk about, well, what progress have we made to change? And you make sure those think and do's get up there and say, okay, well, what I did was I changed it this way and blah, 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 and that kind of didn't work, but then I changed it to this. And you get enough of those examples, and what happens to the see and do's? They go, oh, now I know what you're talking about. Oh, okay. They'll say, I see it now. But that is how they're wired. You know, it's about people who can tell you what they don't like but can't tell you what they want. And other people will always be able to tell you what they want. It's just the way we're wired. So you need both people. We'll always have both people. But you've got to understand the difference in your communication. And then as you move forward with the change, we'll always have the outlier grousers. In clubs, that means we have to talk to them and help them see where their club still is their place in the club still is. And additionally, we have to help our seasoned Rotarians understand what their continued value is to the club and stop asking them to do all this heavy lifting. Instead, let them be the people who support, who can talk about, the importance of Rotary and things that they've done in the past, and make sure when you are making change, if it doesn't work, as I said yesterday, fine, then make modifications, but absolutely be sure it's not a case of you didn't work it. A lot of people don't work. And then, in the corporate world, when you get down to that very few handful of people, they usually come into my office and I say, well, Gary, we're moving in this direction. Pat, I don't like this direction, blah, blah, blah. I go, well, Gary, here's the deal. The train is going north. You can go west, south, or east, but you got to find yourself another train, and I will write you the best recommendation letter you've ever had. But this train is going north. And at some point, in a much more polite, collegial environment, members have to understand that we do need to change. I mean, Paul Harris said, the world will always change, therefore Rotary must change with it. And that's what we're looking at. Questions? Well, oh yeah.
Not being a secretary, but just the best presentation and well meeting.
So, whoa, everybody got hear me? What was the purpose of this talk this morning?
Was to help you see what some of the trend indications are in the district, and to also place that in a broader context of experience, i.e., the kinds of things that we are experiencing are not just happening to us. It's across the board.
To achieve what purpose?
To have you think openly in how you might approach your club differently, in maybe looking internally, and the membership committee is going to help you with more specifics on that.
So I'm well aware of that. My purpose of my question is the following. We're getting this at a district conference when it's not being given at a district training assembly. Okay? None of this was discussed at that training assembly.
Right.
I got feedback from a new member, millennial, from our club, who went through the training session for membership, and it was a discussion of what the problems are, but no discussion about how to solve them. I heard concepts today as to how to solve
Right.
that issue. So it's just a wake-up call for all of us,
Right,
both in the trenches as well as the district,
right,
that we need to change the model of training.
right. Absolutely. And understand that with the survey, we have not surveyed our members in this district like forever. And that can't continue. And the second part, and the reason I gave you the other research is, it is good, and you should, every other year or so, survey your members. But you have to always put an asterisk on that, because you're asking the people who are already members what they think. And our job is to find out more about the people that are not members and what they think, what they're looking for. And it's not, what the habit has been in the past is, well, yeah, they're the same age as I, so they're going to, think and have the same Rotary expectation and experience. And my purpose here is to show you that is not necessarily the case. Because, again, the blurring of the generations, a lot has changed. And we have to understand that maybe, and let me step back and say, there is nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong, in being a traditional club and having people that are going to meet every week and et cetera. But I'm just saying that if that's all you do, the club is not going to grow in 98% of the cases. Your club may be the 2% exception. But we have to be able to do that. And had we had the data sooner, yeah. But I agree with you. But I hope it was helpful for everybody. I'm sorry. Cal?
Oh, district training assembly, we have that every year. It was online this year. District training assembly for all your new officers.
This is another reason why it was said yesterday. We strongly encourage clubs to please send all your new members at least to RLI-1. That allows them, number one, to see the broader Rotary about which they are a part. But secondly, for all of us, we all come from, whether you're a nonprofit, government, or whatever, in essence, we're all coming out of a corporate environment. And there are a lot of incentives that don't have to be spoken that cause people to participate in teams, that cause people to make sure they do their jobs on teams, and that we meet deadlines. It's called performance reviews and salary and potential termination. But that doesn't exist in a true nonprofit, totally volunteer environment. And to me, another essential benefit for RLI is RLI teaches us how to take those leadership skills we use every day in business and convert them to how do we have to change to be a leader and an influencer in an entirely volunteer organization. And that's for some people, that's a rough term.
If you reach out to teachers and nurses who are caregivers and volunteer a lot but have really fixed schedules or crazy schedules that they have no say in, that can't come to meetings on a regular basis, you need them in your volunteer pack.
Right, exactly right, Cindy. You know, we have several members in our club that are assistant principals, et cetera. Well, they can't make a breakfast meeting, but they can on the hybrid, because they sit in their office and they do it from the hybrid. Any other questions? One more.
Thank you so much. I want to mention the fact you talked about welcoming and making people feel that way, verbally as well as nonverbal. I can't tell you how many people yesterday with tunnel vision just walked past people like me without looking at me, without any indication that I existed. And what we know is that people want to know, did you see me? Did you hear me? Am I good enough? This was before we went downstairs. And so I think, too, we need to think about if we really want to recruit people, we're recruiting all of the time. And we want to find people that will want to follow you somewhere. But if you have that tunnel vision and never look and never make us feel welcome, whether it's sitting at the table or walking down the hall, I think it becomes more difficult for people, whatever generation, black, white, whatever, to want to follow us. So
Right.
Again, I don't think it's conscious all of the time, but I think we need to be very mindful of that.
And that's called, it's not just about getting a bunch of people and inviting them into your club. And Pam's looking at me because we talk about this. It's, what are you inviting them into? How do you act as a club? And so therefore, a welcoming club, you have to be welcoming. And you have to be cognizant. You have to get people engaged right away. You have to learn about other people. So with that, let me ask Mr. Jonathan, past district governor, Jonathan Lucas, my friend. Now, do I give him this? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's great. And he is additionally our representative legislation at RI. And there have been several changes that are real important in that Jonathan's going to tell us about. Thank you.
I really think that was one of the best membership presentations I've ever seen. And as the membership chair, maybe we should have switched roles. That was yeah, good, very good point. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of overview for folks who are not familiar with the COL. So first of all, raise your hand if you're familiar with the Council of Legislation and what it does. All right, so that's about 40%. So just to give you some details, we met this past April from the 11th through the 14th. Generally, these are always held in person in Evanston, Illinois, at the RI headquarters. This year was a hybrid. Speaking of hybrid, it was a hybrid model given COVID, and they gave people to participate throughout the world, even if they couldn't be there in person. So what is the COL? The Council of Legislation is a governing body that amends the RI constitutional documents. And what are those documents? Again, RI Constitution, RI bylaws, and then the standard Rotary Club Constitution as well. So it's very important, and I want you to understand the criticality of this process. This is the grassroots opportunity for members within clubs and districts to be able to speak upon changes that they think are necessary as Rotary moves forward in the 21st century. So this meeting happens every 3 years. Each district has a rep, and each club can propose an enactment. Now that enactment must come 15 months before the COL meeting, so it's usually December 31st, the prior calendar year before that meeting happens. Now these enactments are important because there are things that you're seeing as you're out there actually living Rotary that you think maybe we need to adjust. Maybe it's about membership. Maybe it's about the foundation. Maybe it's about just how we organize. And so these changes are constantly happening, and I think it's great to have Rotary that sees the need for this and adapts to our current situations. So what's the process? Clubs or a district board of directors can propose essentially a piece of legislation. The second part of that is the district governor, the sitting district governor, must confirm that enactment. And then the third piece of the process is that proposed enactment is then written up with a statement and documenting paragraphs underscoring where in the Constitution that you're wanting to change, and that is sent to Rotary International's General Secretary. And can you imagine they get hundreds of these from around the world, if not thousands sometime, and they're going through and looking for duplications, and they're looking to make sure that all the information's there. And then comes the day of, or the week of, the actual legislation meeting. And I can say, look, I've done a lot in Rotary in my time, and this was one of the most amazing processes I've ever been through, and one of the biggest honors. RI does nothing short of a magnificent job going through these enactments, getting it ready for us to vote on, giving us an opportunity to speak upon these enactments, and doing it in a very highly efficient and effective manner. Now going through it, I wish our U.S. Congress could work as effectively as this council legislation. I'm not going to hold my breath, but you have to realize we got people from all over the world, one representative from every district. Now, can you imagine that? So somebody from Sri Lanka and somebody from California have the exact same opportunity to create change within our organization. And guess what? We don't fight over it. We discuss. We compromise. It's a great word, compromise. We don't seem to do that anymore in this country. Because we see the betterment of our institutions more important than the betterment of ourselves. And I watched that for 4 days, in and out, on a consistent basis, no matter if we thought something was completely wrong or completely right. We respected each other and made a decision that was not best for me, not best for my club, not best for my district, but best for Rotary in the world. And one of the things going into this, they tell you when you go through the training is, yes, you're there representing your district, what your needs are in your district, but you have to look out for your fellow Rotarian and their situation maybe on the other side of the world. So you need to make that decision predicated on what is best for everyone. Essentially the four-way test, right? You're in good hands. And I'll say you're in good hands not just from the RI perspective, but I got to share that experience with Mr. Patrick Eakes, who represents our zone. You'll get to meet him very shortly. He was nothing short of astounding every time he got on the mic there. We had two directors, and Peter Kyle and our past director, Stephanie Urchik. You couldn't have found two people more professional, more knowledgeable, more caring about our zone than those two individuals. And so I left the whole experience proud to be a Rotarian, proud to be in zones 33, 34, and proud to work with that gentleman over there on a monthly basis. We are in great, great, great hands. So let me just take two seconds to talk about some of the enactments that I think are most important to us here in District 7610. So to give you an overview, we had 94 enactments in total, which I think is fairly low compared to a lot of years. Of those, 15 were withdrawn, and most of those withdrawals happened because the enactment prior to theirs, it was in sequential order, were very similar. And if one was voted up or down, you probably didn't need to go through that same thing again. So we had 15 withdrawn, and that left us with 83 enactments and basically 3.5 days to get through. Of those 83, 27 passed. So what's that mean? We were scrutinizing. Just because something that was up there didn't mean it got a green light. We wanted to make sure if something was going to change, it was absolutely necessary. So I'm not going to go through the whole list of 84. We do have that. I kept copious notes, and I've sent it to our district leaders. If people want that, please feel free to reach out to me. I will send it to you, or reach out to Pat and her team, and they can send it out to you as well. But let me give you just a couple that were, I think, A, most important, B, demonstrated sort of the example of what kinds of legislation passed throughout those 4 days. The first one is 2207, which I really like. We'll see if our clubs can adhere to it, which is that Rotary Club's Board of Directors must publish the minutes of their board meetings within 30 days. Because those things generally, how many times have you never gotten the minutes from your board meeting? You know, right, so that happens. So that's no more of this. The only way for us to communicate, going back to Pat's discussion about communication, we've got to do it effectively. You got to let your members know what you talked about, how the club's moving forward. So I like that one. And I'll send out, look, I'm not hiding behind, look, I went there, I try to get feedback before going into this process to hear from people what they wanted, as far as up and down votes on the enactments. The list I distributed, and I'll continue to distribute, has what I voted on, so you know quite clearly what I thought was prudent, and you can feel free to disagree, and that, but I want people to see what your representative did during that time. The second one is 2210, I thought was interesting. Included, and this is really big, this is something that when I was district governor I really pushed, and that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. 2210 has now made it mandatory that equity and inclusion is now stated in the RI bylaws. Yes, very happy. So that is now, July 1, considered a mandate of what we need to be doing to diversify our Rotary experience. 2213, remove the location requirement of club members. All right, we're doing virtual. We got it at the Peace Builders Club. I mean, you don't need to be in the community, live in the community to be in that club. I think most of our clubs are pretty flexible about that, but now it's a stated thing. You can have that flexibility. 2214, this was a pretty cool one. Rotary member can propose a member, not just for their club, for any club, and get credit for that, right? So you may know an outstanding person out in Oregon who should be in Rotary, but they need to be in Rotary in Oregon. Let's not prevent ourselves from making sure that person gets into Rotary, even if it's not our district or our club. So that was really cool. 2218, clubs can include Rotary actors as committee members. Not chairs, but committee members. Really good. Get the perspective of a young person. Get them involved and embedded in the Rotary experience so they stay with us. 2246, don't shoot the messenger on this one. You can blame Patrick. Annual due increases of $4 in the Rotary year 23-24, and then a $3.50 increase after that for the 2 subsequent years. Why is that? Rotary needs to keep its reserves up, and if we don't do this, we won't. So this is for the health of the entire organization, and I think we can all commit to that for us is a pretty minuscule raise, given we don't have raises in our dues very often. So 23-24 will be a $4 raise, and then the next 2 years we'll see a $3.50 raise. 2254, I like this one a lot too. RI budget and annual report will be published on RI's website. Very important. Again, transparency and communication, so that's a very key one. 2278, inclusion of, and is Juanita still in the room? Oh, tell her this. Tell her this, Bill. Inclusion of positive peace to the 5 areas of service. And this is great because peace, just the word peace itself, and you think, well, what's, nomenclature really matter? But peace itself is very passive. Positive peace means we're actually out there doing something. We're creating peace. Juanita and her club is creating peace. Rotarians in this room are creating peace. Very important. And then lastly, 2285, removal of the requirement of sending attendance records to the district governor on a monthly basis. You're welcome, Sheila. You're welcome, Renee, and you're welcome, Amelia. Obviously, we're becoming more flexible in this account. Many clubs aren't even keeping attendance. Why spend time doing reporting when you should be doing Rotary? And so that's off the table now. Yeah. So with that, I just want to see if there's any questions about council legislation, and I'll wrap up with one more thing. Yes, Amelia.
Go back to 2278, you said in the 5 areas of service?
5 avenues of service, correct.
5 avenues, thank
Yeah.
you. I was like, wait a minute, I'm off smart, okay, good.
Yep. So I will say 2 things before I shut up and give you all a break. One is we're starting the process over now. So please go back to your club. Start thinking about things that you want to see changed and write those things down. Now, it's a one-time deal in our district, so obviously I did it moving on, but I want to make sure that I help the district in this coming year have meetings and have a place for people a repository for people to be able to submit their enactments. We want to be able to represent. I'm telling you, folks, Japan was all over it. All over it. India was all over it, right? They're being proactive. Wasn't a lot from the East Coast of the United States. So, and I know we got some of the smartest people in Rotary in this room, in this district, so if there's something you want, let's do it. And I'll just end with this. It was a great privilege to represent each and every one of you. I took this job very, very seriously. I wanted to respect all the hard work that you all put into this organization, and I tried my best to make the right decisions on behalf of everyone. And again, Rotary's in good hands, and so thank you for allowing me to have this opportunity.